All right, I guess
Great.
it's official. All right. So here we are. This is a Elevate and Celebrate special edition. This is what I love to do with media professionals, event organizers, teams that I work with. I want to do a bit of a twofer, as I call it, two for one, where we get to talk, we get to explore the association, the journey, the and highlight that, and also get some background of like, all right, what are members going through? What are different challenges? No one knows me by now. It's Alex Dumas, based out of North Carolina, professional speaker, coach, author, father, husband, Superman at times if I need to be. But all that said and done, I'm here with the wonderful Susan Thompson. Sue, thank you for agreeing to spend some time with me and for me to highlight you and the great IIBA-OC chapter. So thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, so for anyone who's like, who is Sue and why is she talking to Alex? Well, let me just give you a quick overview, and we can dive a little bit more into your history. So you've been a past president of IIBA, so it's International Institute of Business and Analyst. I was like, say that three times
Analysis.
fast. Yeah, past
And
president.
it's of the Orange County chapter.
Yes, of the Orange County chapter. Thank you for that. You're a business and analyst consultant, a Scrum Master, a Distinguished Toastmaster, which I thought was really fun, a project manager, professional. So, Sue, walk us through your journey real quick. Like, how did you become all these things?
It was sort of a winding road. When I was in college, I was studying classical music, and it looked like the only career path open to me if I got a degree in that was to teach in a university. And I found I didn't really like that idea very much. So I dropped out and I got a job at TRW Credit Data, a very low level clerical job, and found that data was interesting.
Hmm.
Over the years, I did software testing, technical writing, project management, and then I came across this thing called business analysis because as a project manager, I was tending to walk into projects that had failed. And usually it was because they hadn't done very good business analysis. They discovered late either stakeholders they needed to accommodate or that they didn't really understand what the job was that they were trying to facilitate with the project. So they would have software that worked in the sense of it did what it was designed to do, but it wasn't designed to be helpful to the people who were actually trying to use it or the people who were relying on reports and data from it.
Hmm. So you have this functional software that's on paper supposed to do A, B, and C, but yet you're finding that the I'm gonna say technicians, but the analyst, geez, I can't get the words today. Analyst were struggling to use it effectively. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, often it was designed to do A, B, and C, and it actually did do A, B, and C, but from the point of view of either the people who had wanted the software developed or from the point of view of the people who were using it, it really also needed to do D&E.
Hmm.
So it wasn't useful to them because it didn't support them in the jobs they were trying to do.
So we get to unpack this a little bit more. So they can't do D&E now. As far as the larger project scale, like what gets affected? Like what you mentioned stakeholders. I'm imagining some other pieces, some other components and departments who are maybe their jobs are being held up or there's delays on their end because the work itself is not getting
Yeah.
done properly.
Well, for example, there are some people who might not be directly using the system in that they are not inputting data into it, but they're relying on data that some other system pulls from the system we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's not good data. It's either not complete or it's misleading in some way.
Yeah.
And so people say, well, this project, this software project failed and we need to have it fixed, or we, in some cases, we need to throw it away, which is a horrible waste.
If you had to compete, uh, put a price tag on it, like what would you say a incomplete project would cost a client?
It really depends on the client. And sometimes if it's good enough to use, they'll use it and they won't necessarily say that it failed, but they may not want to deal with that vendor again because it didn't give them what they actually needed to do their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like pretty standard business to me. If I don't do a good job for you, there's a good chance I won't get rehired. There's a good chance I won't get referred other business. I won't be recommended or my praise is saying. Actually, it now puts me at a deficit of, well, this guy was trash or this person didn't help me here. Don't go to them, right? You've now built a reputation of not fulfilling your word and not delivering a quality service. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. And in fact, I worked for a small consulting company from about the mid 90s to 2010, in which a lot of what I did was I I would get assigned to a company that was unhappy with the way a project had turned out, and it might be a project that they had done internally, or it might be a project that they had contracted with someone else to do, but they weren't happy with it. And what I usually found was that they they had jumped to a solution. They had not explored thoroughly enough what needed to be done, and they had said, oh, you need a database, so we're going to use this database, instead of you need this data, so maybe it's a database. In these days with big data and AI, maybe it's some other thing that you need, but you don't necessarily want someone to have a set of solutions that they're going to shove on a situation without understanding what the situation is.
Yeah.
It would be as if a doctor prescribed drugs without diagnosing what was wrong.
Mm. Yeah. That's interesting. So take me into the mind of these business analysts, these project managers, when something like that happens, when they have put a lot of time, energy, attention, focus onto a project, but the client, it doesn't land with them or they're unsatisfied, they're unhappy. Like what happens inside internally? What's that dialogue look like? Are you blaming yourself? Are you looking to point the finger at others? Like what's been your experience when things haven't gone exactly smooth?
Well, a lot of it depends on the culture of the company. And if it's a culture where when something goes wrong, the most important thing to do is to find someone to blame, they will find someone to blame.
Hmm.
Or if it's a culture where, wow, that didn't turn out the way we expected, what can we learn from that? That's an entirely different situation, and people can learn. I spent a fair amount of time thinking about what's the opposite of a fear-based culture, because so many corporate cultures are fear-based, and I've finally come to the conclusion that the opposite of a fear-based culture is a learning-based culture, where
Hmm.
no matter what happens, the first question is what happened, and the second question is, okay, it didn't work the way we wanted to, what can we learn from that, and how can we do better in the future so it doesn't happen again?
That seems to be an effective way, right? I don't want to label it good or bad, right or wrong, but as me as an entrepreneur, as I work with other leaders and other people in business, right? That growth mindset, that learning, that opportunity for learning
Yes.
versus this is an obstacle, this is the everything's burning, everything's on fire. It's it's hell on earth right now, and someone's got to pay for this versus, well, maybe there's an opportunity for a collaboration or more innovative thinking.
And usually it's because people don't see the whole. They see a little piece of it, and you in dealing with programmers, for example, they may be working on their little piece and they'll have what's called a stub that gives them back a dummy response so they can at least get a response back and carry on.
Yeah.
But when they integrate it and all the pieces are supposed to go together, then when that doesn't work is when it gets interesting. And I actually did a fair amount of work in the 80s at the company I was working with at that time, where if a project got stuck in that way, I wound up coming onto it as a tester and finding ways to do essentially acceptance testing that says it's supposed to do this. Okay, it does this. It's supposed to do this. Well, it doesn't actually do this.
Hmm.
It does this other thing that we don't want it to do. And what can we do to fix that particular thing?
That seems like a reasonable thing. Seems it seems to make sense in my brain.
Yeah, but if people are looking only at what they are working on, then they may be a little bit not seeing or not hearing what another part of the system needs from them, because they think they've done their part, and what they're most concerned with is that they've done their part and not that the whole thing works.
Yeah. So in your experience, leading teams, how have you been able to rally your direct reports into seeing that bigger picture, into not being so siloed, but also recognizing, hey, you have an important part here. You're an important cog in this wheel, a brick in this wall, so to speak, and not to undermine them, but just this is the language I use. How do you get those individuals to see, all right, my part is important, so they bring their best effort to it, and it actually turns out to be a a successful completion.
That's a good question. I think that it's really more that because you need to look at the thing as a whole, people don't see how their part fits into the whole. So that's one aspect. And for the most part, I wasn't in an official leadership or management position. I was just someone thrown into the project to make it work somehow. And so there can be some resentment when someone comes in with that.
Oh, you as a consultant, like where you're the
Yeah.
outside kind of the yeah, you're the outsider. Like, hey, you don't know us, you don't get what
Yeah.
we're going through. I'm gonna assume that you've gotten some pushback like that from time to
Yeah.
time.
You've been here 5 minutes. I've been here 10 years. What do you know?
So yeah, what if we do something like that? You don't have to get specific like names or anything like that, but like you've got that resistance, right? You got that wall.
Yes.
You've got a group of managers and project managers with this mentally. All right, this lady's going to talk about this. So how do you get them to drop that guard, drop the mask, so to speak, and buy in?
Well, one way is I try to work with people individually as much as possible until they're comfortable working with me,
Hmm.
which might make for some long days and some kind of strange schedules. But one of the approaches I use is usually most people in a situation like that aren't getting what they need from some other group, too. If I can find that out and get that for them, help the other group see that, yes, you need to give him this, and yes, you need to give him that,
Yeah,
then that can help. And if you can find something that will build even a small success, people like to be successful. They like for things to work.
yeah,
They don't really like being yelled at or have people say that you're the problem here.
yeah. That's a fair point. So, and then I get that different projects have different timetables and turnarounds, but like, what would you say, like on average, like from start to finish, hey, idea, client wants this, they come to a vendor, say, this is what we want. You work out the agreements and the terms, and then they finally get it. Like, what does that timeline usually look like?
Well, I've rarely been involved in something from start to finish.
Okay.
I've usually come into it when it was in trouble, but frequently something had been struggling for anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years before I even got involved.
Wow. It's a long
And
time.
of course, a lot of this back in the 80s and 90s projects tended to be longer. In the 2000s, it they may be doing things agile, so they're actually producing something, but the stakeholders often still are not satisfied and still say that everything's too slow and it's not right the first time. And
Yeah.
it's just they find it out in faster increments, which is an advantage at least. Don't really want anyone going for 2 years in the wrong direction.
Yeah. That wouldn't be effective or good or anything of the like. So and I'm curious about this. This is kind of going to a little bit left field right now, but I'm wondering how your musical background has helped you as a consultant, has aided you in seeing that bigger picture and being able to connect with people on that one-on-one style that you said. Like, do you see any correlation there? Any?
Well, now that you mention it, yes, one of the one of the things about playing in an orchestra is that you're doing a very specialized thing, but there's a conductor who is trying to put the whole together.
Yeah,
And some conductors have what you might call abrasive personalities. So you can be called out rather strongly on doing something wrong. But if you can try and understand what the whole thing is, then you can fit into it much better. I'm currently working with Al Shalloway of Success Engineering, who's we have what we call ensemble learning, because there are a lot of very experienced people in Amplio University, which is uh, the way he's presenting his thoughts on things. And he obviously has a leadership position, but various of us come up with a question or a different point of view that enhances everyone's understanding. And this is definitely a learning culture that I enjoy working with.
yeah. So walk me through, when did you first become a member of IIBA, the OC chapter?
Well, I became a member of IIBA before there was an OC chapter. They didn't have that many chapters in. I think I joined in 2005.
Okay.
And of course, I find business analysts very congenial to deal with because they're always trying to figure things out. They're often also a bit introverted or sometimes very introverted. So sometimes it takes a while to warm them up. But once they're comfortable and they talk, you probably found when you spoke to our chapter before that there were lots of questions and people were engaged throughout the presentation because they want to learn,
Yeah.
because that will help them be better at understanding what it is people need so that they can be good business analysts.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, but the learning never stops. Learning for me, I find learning fun. Some people may be like, "Oh, that's nerdy. That's dorky." Okay, it can be that, but if it serves me and my learning is actually directed and focused, right? The intention of it is to benefit other people. So yes, it's good for me, but I'm also making sure it's useful for other people.
Yes. And when you build a community that wants to learn, that's it's it's a joy to be around. We actually formed the OC chapter. It'll be 20 years in September, I believe. So several of us got together, and I think we had to have 15 charter members, and two of the charter members are still members to this day.
Wow.
I'm one of them, and Eileen Olwelling, who's our treasurer,
Yeah,
is
no,
the other.
yeah, she's good, great people.
So that's a pretty long term relationship that we've had. we've always focused on having activities that benefit the members. And so one of the things that we always ask in surveys after a presentation, that we want to know, get feedback on the presentation, but we also want to know, what topics do you want to have discussed?
Yeah.
And do you have any suggestions for speakers? And we've gotten some very good suggestions for both topics and speakers from people responding to that.
Yeah. So if I understand it right, the community aspect of it is one of the main piece of what keeps you engaged and keeps you within the association.
Well, yes, the community aspect and the fact that the topics are interesting to me.
Yeah.
We have probably at least a dozen people who, for years on end, have attended almost every event because they like it too. And then there are people who come once. We've had people come from, since we're doing our events virtually since COVID, we've had people join us from Australia and New Zealand and a couple of places in Europe. We have a number of people who join us from Canada from time to time, and from Mexico and South America. And we've even had somebody join us from Saudi Arabia, where it's kind of the middle of the night for him when we do our presentations.
Wow. Well, that speaks to the quality of the association and your commitment to delivering relevant topics and speakers and content that engage with them. Is that fair to say?
That's what we try to do, and I think we succeed a good deal of the time, at least.
So you're in your experience, your extensive experience, what have you seen as like that separated those few key differences between an analyst that's maybe potentially struggling a bit, that is having some challenges with stakeholders, that are having some issues with just their overall performance, and ones that just seem to knock it out the park on a consistent basis. Like they're people that you can rely on, like someone like an Eileen versus someone. I'm not an analyst, but like if I were coming in, I would be pretty horrible. I think that's my prediction. Like, what do you see? Like,
Well,
I've never seen someone who's just kind of like, they need some more support, and someone who's just they can take it, and you don't have to worry about them. They got it from start to finish.
I, that the big thing that I look for is if they're if they consider that analysis is an active role. There are a lot of people who think that what a business analyst does, and even some business analysts think this of themselves, is they're gathering requirements. So they're going, what do you want? And do you want this? And do you want that? And I always add, and do you want fries with that? Because it that's not analysis. That's being a scribe. And
Mm,
there's nothing wrong with being a scribe, but you have to listen to what they say and try and understand what's going on underneath it and how it might affect someone else and how someone else's actions might affect them. It's it's the opposite of people sitting in their cubicles with headphones on, not paying attention to anything else that's going on. And I know sometimes you have to be heads down and do that when you're working in cubicle land,
yeah.
but it's amazing how much you can learn by actually listening to what people say and asking some open-ended questions and understanding how what they're talking about might fit into the whole stream of what the company is trying to do, and who the company has to deal with aside from its customers. For example, the financial services and everything in medicine are very highly regulated. If you don't take into account those regulations, then no matter how well your project works or how good your analysis is, it could create great problems.
Yeah.
And in any event, for example, if you're dealing with the financials of a company, whether it's a financial services company or not, And you don't take into account that when you're dealing with this sort of thing, everything has to show up somewhere in the general ledger. It's going to be a problem. Or if you build an online system that works really well, except for the fact that you're not billing people properly.
Oh,
And yeah, I've been in a project that turned out to be one of the problems with. So you have to look at have to try and look at the whole and find out what change they want. Because if they're doing something like this, it's because they want to change, whether it's because they want to automate things or they want to do things faster or they want to appeal to a different set of customers. There's some change involved, but it isn't change for the sake of change. It's change for the sake of either being more profitable or making things work better or having a better customer experience.
man. Yeah. So through all that, what I really latched on to, the words that were buzzing in my head were critical thinking,
Yes.
right?
And systems thinking of not only the pieces, but how they relate to each other.
Yeah, sort of like an orchestra.
Yes.
It's relevant for me. My daughter, she's 14. She's in high school in the marching band, and she plays trumpet. But we have what do you call it? The color guard. They're the ones throwing up the flags, the rifles. There's the brass section. There's the drums. There's keys. Right? All these pieces have to fit together and be on the same beat. And when one person's a little bit off, a little bit slow, a little bit fast, they either have to adjust or the whole song starts to go to hell because they're playing here, they're in this key now. This person's over here, they're not even in the same song. They're they're in a different genre at this point, and that
Yes.
is obviously not a great performance.
And it's in front of an audience. And a lot of times people think that what they do in an office isn't in front of an audience, but there's always somebody who's going to notice,
Mm.
especially if it doesn't work out the way that they wanted it to.
The truth will always come to the light. Yeah, I'm excited. In a couple of weeks, I'm gonna have another opportunity to grace your virtual stage and share my signature keynote, speak up, stand out, and a big piece of that is really looking at how to just create that inner confidence within yourself, right? Of I know what I'm doing, I'm capable, I'm qualified, and how do I bring my best ideas and not kind of hide, not shrink, not feel like, well, I can't say this or I don't want to be laughed at or mocked or embarrassed because for whatever reason, whatever's going on in that person's head, they feel like maybe I might be judged or uh, if I get the spotlight on me, then that's more pressure if I have to deliver all the time. So I'm curious for you, kind of hearing that little abstract discourse, like how do you see that helping project managers or helping business analysts in your association? And not your association, but within the OC chapter.
Well, I think that you have to be willing to perhaps not be the person who's right,
Hmm.
because somebody else might have a better idea. And if you fight it rather than listening to it and adopting it, you're that much the poorer. I've learned a lot from people who maybe had less experience than I did, but who had an insight that I didn't have at that time.
Yeah. Interesting.
And if I say that, oh, this is a newbie, this person couldn't possibly know anything, then I'm going to lose the opportunity to learn that.
Yeah. It's that big word again, that the learning, that constant curiosity of seeking knowledge. And I love what you shared. It can be from somebody who's less experienced, maybe less technically proficient in some areas, and then you're able to draft an insight from them. There's something that they say or a way that they do it, a part of their process that I could add that to what I do, or I can see somebody else in a different company or someone another peer that you work with, like, hey, they kind of do the same thing, or they might benefit from having this kind of connection and just brainstorming together. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I agree with that. And I really like it when I can ask a question that isn't a yes no answer, but an open ended question and listen to the response and find that somebody else's mind is working a little bit differently from mine, but maybe that's the direction we need to go to solve this problem. And even if it isn't, I've experimented around with another direction.
Hmm. It, you know, as we get close to wrapping up, as a fellow Toastmaster, I'm curious, how has being a Toastmaster, how's being able to practice presentations and speak, how do you see that's impacted how you listen?
Well, it's invaluable because a Toastmasters meeting is really a vessel of feedback if you approach it properly.
Yeah.
Not only does a prepared speaker get feedback on the prepared speech, but there's often someone counting the ahs and ums and filler words that just distract from things. And there's someone called a grammarian who's checking for good and not so good uses of the English language. There's often a word of the day that people try to incorporate, and all of these people report at the end of the meeting what they heard. And there's a general evaluator who evaluates how the meeting as a whole went, and possibly even including how well planned it was and how well people dealt with things that were unexpected or if someone couldn't show up at the last minute.
Yeah.
So it's a very good way to practice getting feedback and using it going forward. And I've learned a lot from it, and I'm still a Toastmaster, and I even have a meeting tonight, and I'll be giving a speech.
Hey, fantastic. No, I love that because feedback, right? So it's in the same realm. Some people can hear feedback or they can hear it as criticism. They're both the same thing as I see it as where are you coming from internally? Are you looking for that feedback like, okay, this is where I can get better, this is what I can learn, or wow, Sue was really hard on me. She was just she knocked me boom, 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 boom. Oh my goodness, I don't want to ever go back there again. I don't want to. If someone asked me to do a role, right? I'm talking Toastmasters, or now we go into the business analyst world. I don't want to say anything. I want to. I have an idea, but I'm gonna put that hand down. I'm gonna go T-Rex or alligator arms and kind of hold that in. So I think this important for anyone. Doesn't matter what profession you're in to have that confidence to know that I know what I'm talking about. I have an idea and be willing to be wrong. And it's okay. I'm wrong. I only have to be right 51% of the time to be successful. If I fall below that, then that's a failure, so to speak.
Well, if it's a really important thing, maybe only 10% right to be successful.
Yeah, that's true.
But one of the things I've learned about feedback, and this goes back to long before I joined Toastmasters or became a business analyst, is that you both have to learn how to give it and how to receive it.
Yeah.
And the most striking thing I've noticed about most people who are uncomfortable with feedback is they aren't aware of their own strengths. And
Oh,
they can be shocked when you tell them that they were good at something.
yeah.
And that
Yeah,
can be kind of a magical moment.
it is. And that's gonna be one of the I don't want to give away too much. So if you are listening to this, you're watching this, I invite you to come. I think it's June 27th. Oh, I should have the date ready in my head, right? What day is it? No, June 25th. Sorry.
June 25th. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was my
June
memory.
25th. That's a Wednesday night. That is 7:30, 7:30 Eastern time is when this gathering happens. I'll be presenting then. And one of the things I love to do, I love to play with audiences, whether it's live or virtual, is just having a moment that attendees can partner up and we get a chance to brag for a minute or so about your greatest professional accomplishment. And for a lot of folks, that's uncomfortable. Like, what do you mean? That's bragging. I, I was taught not to say X, Y, and Z about myself. But big piece of confidence that I've found for myself when I can own that, when I am aware of that, and I can express that, not from a gloating, Sue, I'm amazing. Don't you know that? Like, no, it's just, hey, this is what I've been able to do. This is my track record of success. And I know that within me. And I can carry that across any project, anything that I'm doing.
And it can help lift the wings of other people as well.
Yeah. One person sees like, oh, well, Sue's pretty confident. She's got this history and she's got all this experience. I don't have all of that yet, but I do have this. I'm in the room for a reason. I do have value to add. And I think that's important for anyone to embody and help them succeed in wherever they want to go. That's my
Indeed.
2 cents about it. Make sure
Yes.
you come there June 25th. That's a Wednesday night. Go to IABA's website, the OC chapter, Orange County, and we would love to see you. We'd love to have you there, and you don't have to necessarily be a member, an existing member to attend. So this is open to the public. So tell a friend, bring 2 friends, bring 3 friends, bring the whole neighborhood if you want. Invite everyone you can because it's gonna be a fun night. I've been fortunate to have presented twice, and you'll have been gracious enough to invite me back. And I love the partnership and the friendship that we have. So I thank you, Sue. I think you and IIBA-OC in as a whole for all that.
Well, thank you, Alex. We are looking forward to having you.
All right. So all that said and done, I'll see you on the 25th, and we're gonna wrap this up. Till next time.